Good morning from dreary and foggy Dallas. I'm here with the great Paul Barlow, aka Mr. Wolf himself. Today we're going to be talking some sales in the localization industry, and I think it's long overdue that I have this conversation with Paul. He is a master at his craft. Paul, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You have a long resume. I don't quite know what I should highlight other than you have an executive MBA from a really prestigious organization to start with. But go ahead, introduce
Oh
yourself.
goodness, how do I top that, Stefan? Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for. It's good to see you. Thanks a lot for having me on here this morning. So, yeah, good morning from a sunny and not really warm, but sunny South Carolina. So, I can see the sun, I can see the sea. So, all is good. Yeah, I guess a lot of people out there know me, but for people that don't know me, I've spent my career in the localization industry. It's been really good to me. I've been very, very lucky. Um, and yeah, I've spent a lot of it on the LSP slash LSC slash LSI, whatever you want to call, on the services side, building companies, sold a couple, and always with a view of kind of growth and helping the growth strategy and how do we take it forward from that. So like I said, I've been very lucky throughout my career. I grew up in Ireland. I've spent a lot of my career in California, and as I said, I've built a few, sold a few, and so on. So
Yeah.
it's been a great ride, you know.
I wanted to have you on because you're a very timely guest for this point in the localization industry. I think so many LSPs are struggling with the tremendous changes we've seen in the industry in the last couple of years with the arrival of AI, and lots of companies are looking for help in their sales strategies and growth strategies. And you're the guy that's really gone very deep in that rabbit hole, shall I say. So let's talk a little bit about that lens. What are the blind spots you notice when localization leaders talk about growth?
Yeah, look, that's a really great question. If I could just kind of roll it back just a little bit, I think AI has come and hit everybody really quickly, and it's been information overload, right? It's been everywhere, and I think as a former LSP owner, and a lot of our industry on the services side, on this side of the industry, is built by, individuals who have grown the companies over the years. They were great linguists, they were great technology people, whatever the companies grew, they were great content creators. And now they're saying, I'm not really sure what to do. There's information overload. Is AI going to take my lunch money? I'm kind of stuck here, and I'm losing revenue, or I'm losing clients. And the narrative is very technical, and some of them were already technical, and some of them were absolutely not technical. They were focused on the words. So there's a wide range of LSPs out there, LSCs, owners going, I'm not really sure what to do now. Is it doomsday, or is it, hey, I can pivot and I can do better? I'm not really sure what to do. So I think there's a huge need, and I think that the question is, the answer is probably different for most individual owners, because it's a very personal decision too. Do you want to sell the company? Do you want to fight another 10 years? Do you want to embrace it? What do you want to do? So there's a lot of options out there. I think the good news is, and I think this year has seen it started out with a lot of, oh my gosh, what do we do next? And now it's really beginning to settle down, and people are saying, well, where can AI be used, and not just destroy everything and leave everything in its wake and just take over everything. So it's emerged. I think the narrative has changed as the years gone on, and you've talked to a lot of AI folks, where it's now actually AI just doesn't roll into town and take over everything, and that's it. It's very much with the human in the loop, and so on, in terms of how you roll it out and how you integrate it with your own, one, with your own system, and two, with the external systems that you're working with. So I think the biggest mistake I'm seeing is, well, I think we're done and dusted here. I don't know what to do next, and push the panic button instead of, look, step back, find where to get good education about it, don't believe everything you read. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of misinformation, a lot of and causes panic. And I think carefully start to curate it. Talk to peers, talk to people that you trust, and then start to build your own plan. And I think that's essentially, don't push the panic button. I've seen a few push the panic button, and I think yes, you need to move, you need to pivot, you need to do something. But you need to figure it out first. Don't just run headlong into it. And I think that's what I'm saying. I see people running headlong, and so wait, let's slow it down before we start running. Let's figure this out.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit what that looks like in the very beginning when you get called in as a fractional growth leader and you're being tasked with refocusing the sales efforts at an LSP. You have a long list of LSPs you've given help to in that regard. What does the first, what's the first exercise when you come into a company that you want to help out?
Yeah, again, as I said, I think I've got to assess where you're at. I would never judge, right? Your company is here, and sometimes I go in and go, oh, the sky is falling. It's like, wait, the sky isn't falling. Let's just get a breather. Let's assess where you're at. And I'm not here to judge. By the way. We're here because we're here. I'm concerned about how we get to the next point, the next checkpoint along the way. That's what I'm here. So let me see where we're at. Let me figure out why you're here. Let me see what that looks like. And then I'll come up with a plan with you that will suit your organization, that will help you move forward. And it might not be overnight, and it might be some hard decisions. And generally it will be, in terms of having to restructure, having to look at new technology, start different conversations or whatever. But let's figure that out. So that's the very first thing we do. Where are we at? Where do you want to go? Let's figure that out. So none of the, our revenue has been flat and we've been drifting away, and we'll figure all that out. Okay, you're here because you're here. Okay, we get that data quickly, but I don't want to look back. I want to look forward. Learn the lessons quickly, and then let's get a plan to move forward.
And since you're a guy who's seen a lot of flavors of where LSPs are at nowadays, what does a healthy growth engine look like in the localization industry today? That's an easy question. That should be fairly simple for you to answer.
That one up, yeah. I look at it, I think it's predictable revenue. It's and in fact, a lot of this year has been about revenue defense. It's not even about revenue growth. It's about, oh my gosh, I'm losing clients. Our clients, are talking to me saying, they don't want to spend money on localization anymore. So I think you've got to build a predictable pipeline, and this is as simple as it gets. You've got to get a handle on, again, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are the conversations you're having? What are you doing with your clients? What are you targeting? Who are you targeting? What can you sell? Where are you going to pivot? What are the services? What's the plan? So I think a healthy sales organization is a team that's fully on board, fully aware of the organization's direction, and with a very predictable pipeline. And even if it's not predictable, it will become predictable if you're doing the right things, right? But at least it's measurable. You can see where you're at. And even if it looks ugly right now, at least you have a grip on, okay, the pipeline, the opportunities, the narrative, the conversations, everything we're having, what we're targeting. Not quite aligned yet, but at least I can see that, have a plan in place to quickly change that, by changing your messaging, changing your targeting, changing your organization offering, change that, figure that out, get the right people in the right seats that are going to help you drive this forward, and have the data and have it predictable so you can see, not looking back again, Stefan. You need to see out in front. You need to be looking in front to go, what does next month look like? What does next quarter look like? What are our opportunities? What are our, are we cross-selling, upselling? Are we having those conversations? How are we having those conversations? What are we saying to our client? What do we know? So very much an educated, self-propelling organization, sales organization where everybody knows their piece, everybody has the narrative, and we're out there having those conversations.
It's a very good idea not to look back too hard. You might turn into a pillar of salt. And that's not a good idea. If we flip the coin a little bit and look on the negative side for a second, in your opinion, what drives revenue loss in LSP more than anything else in 2026, I should say?
Oh, I think I think people doing nothing. I think being lethargic. I think being, oh, that was a blip of a year. We'll be better next year. We've done some stuff to tighten up, and just looking at costs. Oh, we're saving costs over here, so we're looking at that's it. That's the immediate thing. You have to go on the front foot again, forward thinking, forward marching, forward looking. To go. Okay, great. You save some costs and you've tightened up the ship and all of that, but how are you going to replace that revenue, protect that revenue, grow that revenue? Are you going to find new clients? What's your plan? Turn it, face it, and ask the hard questions of yourself. But again, I think to be, you really have to be forward looking. We can't say, oh, we've had 5 great years and our numbers were great and all of that. All bets are off. You've seen it. This year, 2025, has been again another watershed moment. And AI is only going to get stronger and better, and the integration, and the offering. I think the good news is, as everybody's saying, and people far smarter and more educated than me, is going, the content, the number of languages, everything is exponentially going to grow. So there's going to be lots and lots and lots more content there to be done. But the winners are going to be the people that can really figure that out. You're not getting your 100,000 word project anymore. Of translation. You're getting a smaller piece of work, but you might be getting 200 languages now as opposed to 10, 2 years ago. So
when you come into a company to analyze them and see where the revenue problem might lie, there's typically not 100 areas that's coming from. Generally, it would be either sales driven or strategy driven, I would think.
Yeah.
How do you diagnose that when you first come into an organization?
I think you got to look at 2 parts, right? You got to look at what your existing client base looks like, what's your existing, approach to that revenue or approach to those clients, and again, are you taking orders or have you been proactive? Has your team been proactive? Have they been cross-selling, upselling, looking for opportunities, looking for a similar type client? What's the momentum there? And a lot of them I find, look, no disrespect, but there's been a lot of, our account management team have been here for 10 years and they're very good at taking orders and they have a great relationship with XYZ over there, and it's lovely. Relationships are no longer, the bond that's going to hold it all together, because as we've seen even on the client side, yes, relationships are critical, absolutely. The people relationship is still critical, but I think even on the client side, we've had some great client side people out talking this year saying localization teams on the client now have to justify themselves up the chain of command and show the value that localization teams actually are bringing to an organization, particularly with AI and all of that. And they're leading that narrative, within their own organization. So just saying, oh, we've had a 10-year relationship and our account manager gets on great with their decision maker over there. I think it's a lot of lethargic kind of, it's been good for the last 10 years. I'm finding a lot of that with it existing. It's like, no, you need to be cross-selling like crazy. You need to be in front of them. You need to show the value all the time, show the increased value, and so I think it's been, a lot of companies have been very kind of, our industry has been like this for 20 years, where it's been great. We're settled in there. We're one of 3 vendors. We get our slice of pie. We do a good job. We offer the best service in the industry. Every LSP and LSI and LSC I met, you used to trot that line out too, So, and it's not about that. It's about being really proactive. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Here's something else. Opening up the narrative now in terms of, hey, you know what? Come with an educational mind. Hey, here's what we're doing elsewhere. Here's what I'm seeing, what's going on in the industry. Here's what you can apply, Mr. or Miss Client, to your program. I was thinking about, and that's where you're showing the extra value, So I think that's a big part of it. And then on the other side, what are you doing for new business development? Because that's got to feed the organization. If you're ignoring that, then eventually, and quicker than ever now, we've seen existing clients' business, starting to shrink for any number of reasons, But now with the whole shift, that, as I said, it's more into, a lot of it has been, revenue protection rather than revenue growth for a lot of LSCs and LSPs this year.
Maybe the silver line or the common thread I see there is that for the first time in a long time, there's a lot of pressure on the buyers to show progress when it comes to adaptation to AI. And if you're not innovating your service offering, you risk falling behind because the buyer will have to prove to his management team that they're lowering cost or speeding things up or making improvements on the localization. And that way, would that be a true statement, you think?
Absolutely right. Yeah, and I was up at Taos in Salt Lake City, and there was a great panel there. Some folks from Uber and Zoom and Jose Palomares, so it was a great panel, and they were all talking about that, and that's what they're looking for in partners, and that's what, again, internally they're becoming the experts, and it's a great opportunity for localization departments within big client-side organizations to actually help, because we're kind of ahead of the curve, in many respects. Our industry has been battered quicker than a lot of other industries, so again, they're kind of dictating the narrative. They've the opportunity to dictate the narrative internally in their own organizations, but that's got to spill over to their partners in terms of saying, well, what are you doing here with us? You got to align. Yeah. You got to bring the goods to the table. It's not just about words and service and being nice people and all of that and giving us good rates. That's all a given. That we respect and all that. What are we doing? Where do we take this forward?
You scaled companies into the NIMSY top hundreds. What was the edge behind that acceleration? Is there a little bit of luck involved, or it's all planned and methodically organized?
Well, hey, I'm Irish, so I always believe in you need a bit of luck on your side too, right? So, and as I said, I've been very lucky throughout my career, so, but I think you need a good core to begin with. I think that starts with commitment from the top of the organization that are truly committed to change, that are truly committed to saying, look, I get it. I really need us to grow. I really need us to change, and we're prepared to make some of the hard decisions. We're prepared to take the medicine, as it were, to get us there, and realize that this mightn't be a 2-month thing. This might take us, 6 months or 12 months, but we're prepared to change in order to put the foundation stones in to build a better future. And that was generally how I talk to them, to say, look, if we can, let's fix the hemorrhaging first. Let's stop that first. And then as we build a plan, let's build a plan that's going to last, that's going to see it as far as we can. We can't build a 10-year plan. This industry, it doesn't work. It's impossible, particularly nowadays. But let's build it. Look, where do you want to be in 3 years? What would be great? What if you woke up in 3 years' time and said, we're here? What would that look like? And generally, I try and work backwards from that then to go, okay, so here's where I think we can do. Let's set some realistic goals. And if they're not realistic, I'll tell them. It's like, guys, this is, in my opinion, it's probably not going to work, so so good reality check, to need it.
There's so many mid-size, small-size LSPs that are hovering right between the, say, 3 and 5 million mark. There's hundreds of those, if not thousands, around the world. A lot of those owners have this ambition to grow revenue to, say, 10 or 20 million. What needs to evolve when a company shifts gears in that kind of revenue drive?
Yeah.
Do you think? What's the main thing that needs to change?
I think they need to change the focus. I think they need to be focused on 1 or 2 or 3 things and be really, really, really good at them and specialize. I find a lot of LSPs and LSCs at that level are doing, we've a bit of this over here and we've a bit of that over there and we've a bit of, and I get that, right? Having built a couple of companies and owned a couple of companies myself, it's like, you want to take any revenue, we'll do it. Yes, we'll do it. When you start out and that kind of grows and matures, and then you're left with 5 years on, you have good revenue and have a complete mishmash of clients and types of businesses, and we do a bit of this and a bit of that. So I think you pick your top 3 or 4 services that you can really do really well and focus and improve and really, really hit them hard as you can, and look at your client base, look at your client offering, and find more clients in that space and go talk to them, find where they are and go and offer them value, go and start those conversations. And that's back to the people bit. It's not just a matter of, oh, I have this automated outreach and I'm going to send 1,000 emails out for the next 10 days every day. You know, it's personalized. It's kind of tighten the focus and be much more personal about it.
Yeah. One of the other things that you're heavily involved in is mergers and acquisition. And I want to talk to you about that a minute, if possible.
Sure.
You've been on both sides of the acquisition, so to speak. You've lived it firsthand because you've sold several of your own companies. What's the difference between a good acquisition and a bad one?
Goodness me, that's a really good question. So I think it depends on what you want to buy, the reason why you want to buy, right? So from a buyer's perspective, what do you want? Why do you want to buy that company? Is it to get a foothold in the region? Is it a particular technology? Is it a skill set? Is it a set of clients? What's the reason, right? So I think you got to be really, really clear on why you want to acquire that organization. And I know that's very simple, Stefan, but honestly it is. I think there's a lot, oh, they're 5 million, let's buy them because I need to add another 5 million to our revenue number, and that's how we're going to grow. You know, there's so many things can go wrong. I think one thing that gets overlooked is the culture fit. I think that's not listed in terms of evaluation anywhere. And as you know, culture is part of the reason why a lot of these companies have been successful, because there've been great people there, it's been a great culture, and then you get organizations that are not a fit, and it doesn't matter what the valuation is, these things aren't going to fit. Staff start to leave. The reason why you bought it was because, and it was successful, was because of a lot of those great people there. They get disenfranchised and they start to leave, and then you're losing momentum then, you know. So I think there's definitely a number of reasons, you know, things can go wrong and go askew. But I think if you're on the buyer side, you've got to really, really have a clear answer as to why you want to acquire that company. What are you doing it for? You know, what's behind, and then make sure that's the right fit, because that's exactly what I'm looking for, because X, Y, and Z, this is what I want to do, you know. So.
Yeah. What about the founders? We've talked about the buyers, but let's take a look at the founders involved with mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
Quite often the biggest point of contention is the valuation of people's companies. The owners tend to think that they're worth more than the buyers, I would think. What do founders often misunderstand about their own valuation, you think?
Look, it's true, and I've been there, you know, a couple of times. So it's an emotional involvement, you know, to start off with. So it's like I poured my life into this. I have great memories. I could tell you memories of the team working overnight, and we delivered that huge project. You know, phenomenal memories. And a buyer really doesn't care about that, you know, at the end of the day, you know. So I think it's a bit of emotional involvement, and I do think owners in general probably would, well, one, they want the valuation as high as possible, right? But I think that's it. It's the emotional kind of involvement, and on the other side, you know, there's a very clear matrix of here's the value of the company, and and that's been defined a long time ago, you know. So I think that's really the reason why there's a big mismatch sometimes, and sometimes it's wishful thinking, and sometimes it's owners that go, yeah, I want the money, but I want to still run the organization myself, and I'm not, you know. So that's what they're looking for. So too, it depends on what the owners want. Do they want a big check and retire to a beautiful island in the South Pacific? It sounds lovely,
yeah,
but it really depends on what they want out of it too, you know. But in general, I think owners want their baby handed over to, you know, a safe pair of hands where they know they can continue the progress, you know.
What should owners do if they want to sell their LSP beyond talking to Paul Barlow? They probably should do a couple of things to position themselves for the sale. What should they fix first, you think? What are the most important things to have in order when you want to sell your LSP?
Look, at the big thing, you know, any potential buyer is going to walk in and look at is, you know, how's the organization functioning from a numbers point of view? What's the revenue? What has been the revenue part? You know, the valuation around EBITDA. How's that performing historically? What's your plan right now? How do you see how do you see going forward? So, and that has to align. That you can't just say, oh, the numbers have been great and blah blah blah, and here they are. You know, it's like, well, what's the plan going forward? Do you expect that to continue to be solid or to grow? And what's your plan to make that continue to grow? So if you stay on track for the next 3 years, what's that going to look like? So you got to fix that. You got to get in there, because that's the first place where a buyer would look. You know, so. I think you gotta get your house in order, you know, and it's gotta all match up. So you operationally has gotta meet your sales goals and targets, and that will feed into your numbers then and your predictions.
Yeah, you're a big change management coaching guy as well. That's one of the hats you wear, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about that topic, because it interests me just from a managerial point of view. What makes a company coachable or uncoachable, Paul?
I think I mentioned earlier, I think it starts really at the top. They have to be fully on board, and one of the first things I do, you know, is I would have an engagement with kind of the CEO, the C-suite, the leadership team, to go, you know, what do you want to achieve? Why do you want to achieve it? We're at this point, and tell me, let's go around the room, tell me where the problems are, why you have these problems, you know, and are you really willing to change? So again, I feel like a lot of organizations and company owners say, yeah, of course we want to change, and then when you really drill down into it, you go, there's really some hard decisions to be made here. We're going to have to, you know, you can see them and they're not willing to do that. And for me, I would personally, and I've done it a couple of times, to say, look, be honest with you, I could write you a report, I could give you a recommendation, but that's not how I operate. You know, I prefer to get in and actually help fix the stuff for you too. But you'd be wasting your money. I'm the wrong guy here for you, because, you know, if you're not really prepared to do and make the changes that I'm recommending here, then I think I can write a report and take your money, and I don't do that. I don't want to do that. So you're wasting your money. You're better going to somebody else. So unless you're prepared to take, you know, the hard medicine here, you know, and you know, it is. Sometimes I just have to use intuition when I'm chatting with a CEO or a company owner to go, they're really not up. They say they are, but they're really not. Sometimes I can just sense it, and sometimes they say they are and they're very convincing, and they're not really. But again, transparency is critical in all of this, and I would raise the flag and say, hey, listen, I said this, you agreed to that, and we're not going there, so like, what do you want to do about it? Because again, you're wasting your money, you know, handing it over to me here. I don't want to take your money for that, because I want to help people, and that's what it's about, you know. So
you act as a sounding board for the executives. So what kind of conversations do leaders rarely admit they need, you think?
I think sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes, you know, executive teams don't have all the dots connected even among themselves, you know. So I'll hear something from one part of the organization, and then I'll be chatting with another piece and go, did you know? And it's kind of like, look, a surprise, and it's like, wait a minute, you didn't know that, or you weren't aware of that, or oh yeah, that's, you know. So even aligning the C-suite sometimes is kind of a starting point to go, I need to get you all together, we need to get this out on the table together, we need to figure this out, and so that's kind of surprising sometimes, but you're surprised when you see it, but it's definitely out there. It's definitely out there in organizations.
Yeah, when a company wants to enter a new market, what's the first question it needs to get answered, do you think?
Are you capable of delivering? What value are you going to deliver, you know, and are you capable of delivering to the levels that, you know, you can actually be successful in that market? I did a thing with Gala recently, you know, where we talked about multimedia, and multimedia has been thrown around a lot, you know, and you know, audiovisual, you know, work, because it's a growing market, right? So and it seems like it's an easy pivot for a lot of LSPs and LSCs. Oh, we'll just do the multimedia thing. So you know, and again, in there I was stressing, saying, you really have to figure out, can you deliver on this? Put your ego aside. We've great engineers who can do that. It's not. You need to understand the market, you need to understand what the offering is, you need to be able to offer value, and you need to answer the question, is this a go or a no-go for us? Can we honestly deliver value and sell this, to our clients or to new clients? And I think answering that question up front will save you a lot of money and time and energy and effort and pain and blood and sweat and tears and much more.
Well put. Maybe one last question. We've blown through half an hour. I knew this was going to happen. We've covered about half of the questions I wanted to ask you, but who cares? That means you had a lot to talk about. So, this is my last question for 2026. If an LSP wanted to grow intelligently, where did they start right this minute?
Oh, that's an easy question, Stefan. You left the easy one.
Okay. All right. I'm excited you find that one easy.
No, that's dark.
I got it. I'm just pulling your leg.
So again, I think it's look inwards first of all, right? Reality check. Really answer the hard questions. We're here because we're here, but what does that look like, and where do we want to go to? Now, I know that sounds very simple, but honestly, it is. You gotta have a really clear vision of what's the finishing point. So where do we want to be this time 12 months, and then work backwards. What's it going to take for us to do that? Is that the right market? Is that the right thing? Is that the right thing for us to do? Where do we want to be? So again, look inwards quickly if you've not already done that, and ask the really hard questions, and just be honest with yourselves, and then build a plan. Then build a plan forward, and don't expect to have it all solved in 12 months' time, right? Focus on in 12 months' time would be superb if we're there. That's a successful year. What does that look like for you, knowing that there's probably a 3-step, maybe it's a 3-year plan you need to come up with, but carefully have that, and then work towards those goals. So break it down into small pieces, break it down quarter and quarter, list it out. This is what we want to achieve. And again, this is not rocket science. This is simple. So the answers are hard. Is that what do we do is the hard piece in there. What do we do that can add value, that can change the narrative, that can help us pivot? But in terms of the process is easy. Easy in terms of look at the stages here, checkpoints, figure this out as you go. So and tick them off as you go. I'm sorry, not figure it out. Tick them off as you go. So you're watching progress.
Well, you convinced me. If you have a problem as an LSP and you need to clean up, Mr. Wolf and Paul Barlow, thank you so very much for spending some time with us in this LocDiscussion and sharing some of the very interesting nuggets that make up the revenue field, so to speak. Thank you, Paul Barlow. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Stefan, thanks so much for inviting me on and letting me spout out here for the last half an hour. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thanks a lot.